and welcome to your program Just For You. And this is your man, Suniwayne Fella. I'm so glad to be with you today. And I must commend all of you who sent in your comments concerning my last video. I'm very much impressed. Your encouragement, your advice, and every statement you made, I believe, was in place concerning our beautiful and lovely country. But the country is there. It's a beautiful country. We want it to be better off than what it is, right? I believe all of you will agree with me that having a beautiful country is not all to it. What makes that country beautiful, or what keeps it beautiful, I think it should be something that we all need to be thinking about, and whatever way we can contribute our quota to make this country, or to keep this country as it should be. It is our responsibilities as people, all right? So, due to the situation that we had for the past 6 years, and coming into a new term, a new regime with a new leadership, now we're going to really find out and distinguish between the two, right? We realized that Liberia, we have so many ministries, we have about 19 different ministries that we have cabinet ministers that head these 19 ministries, plus deputy ministers and other people that work within each ministry. But we realized over time that the past 6 years have not done its due diligence to the Liberian people. I'm not here to put down anyone, but I'm here to say the facts, to tell you the truth about our government and how it's been run in the past. We found out that the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs have not been up to date, especially the past one, concerning helping the ministry do better for its people. And the reason I'm saying this is we have found out that 730 ghost names were on the payroll for the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance. We realized that Mr. Samuel Toer, who was the Minister of Finance, and Mr. McGill, even though he was sanctioned for corruption, was the one who were running, this scheme. And it is so unfortunate to know that there are so many people in Liberia who were looking for jobs, okay? Who couldn't find jobs. It was so unbearable for them. They end up either selling, or they end up doing stuff that was inappropriate to be able to survive. Why they had 730 people names on the payroll, a ghost name on the payroll of the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs. And that is so discouraging, that is so sad. And to even find out they have 385 actual employees. 385 actual employees that worked with the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs under the CDC government, while 730 were ghost names. They were not working there. They didn't have a job there. But these people, the money that was to be paid to these 730 people summed up to over $2 million, I believe. It is just so appalling to hear this kind of stuff. So where did the 2.x number of millions of dollars went? Where did it go? 2 point some more million dollars. And I want to get you the actual figure here, because it's very important. $2.7 million. $2.7 million that was given to ghost employees. So that money was put into the pocket of the Minister of Finance and also the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs. But these are the kind of people Liberians continue to what? To put into offices to lead them. Mange today is the senator for Margibi County. These people need to be audited. It is also reported that our office called the Procurement Office was there at the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs in mouth only or in name only. They did not have a procurement office, but they were employees, but there was no office. And everyone who worked with the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs purchased or did their own procurement. I don't seem to understand it, my people. You can imagine if we have 19 ministries in Liberia, and every ministry did such a thing. Imagine how many millions of dollars that was pocketed by the CDC ministers, CDC government ministers against the Liberian people. No procurement office, but people were hired as procurement officers, but they did nothing. Everybody who worked at the Ministry of State for President Affairs as procurement officer purchased their own stuff. Look, come on, man. We all know these things. Sometimes we are placed in positions, and then even us, when we're in Liberia a few months ago, each time we went to shopping, right, we were able to talk to the seller to give us discount. And 99% of the time, he gave us discount. That means that was extra money that we kept to purchase other things. So if you don't have a procurement office, you do have the officers, but they are not doing their job for the past 6 years, and everyone purchased their own thing. So if they give each office or that was not procurement officer or procurement office certain amount of money, what do you think happened to that money? So that means the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs was not working in accordance with what they should have been doing. And because of that, Liberians suffer. They only had 385 actual employees at the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs who were not doing literally nothing. Because they didn't know what they were doing. They had nothing to do. They all went and just sat. Some of them go home at 12 o'clock and never return to work because there was no accountability. Nobody checked on them. So these are the kind of things that Liberia have been going through for the past 6 years. The Civil Service Agency and the Governance Commission have now embarked on making sure that these things never happen again. But I want to say bravo to Councillor Toba for exposing these things. And she even went on to say that even they don't even have vehicles. There were only one vehicle that was accounted for. So that means all of the vehicles that the government purchased for the workers at the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, they own them because there was no procurement officer. Okay, there was nobody to double check and to find out how things were going and how things went. So everybody did their own thing. So if you got a car or you purchased yourself a car based on what they give the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, at the end of the day, you own it. You think that's your car because there is no record to state that the car is not yours. You can imagine that? The office of the President of the Republic of Liberia. That's where all of these irregularities came through. And I was just listening the other day, they were making an announcement. The present government was making an announcement and saying that everyone who owns vehicle for the government should turn them in. And so far, it was only one vehicle that was accounted for. One. Out of over 1,000 workers that is claimed to have worked with the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, which I believe most of them had vehicles, Now only one vehicle is accounted for, 730 ghost names on the payroll, and only 385 people that were actually hired by the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, but was doing nothing. They were doing nothing. That is so sad for Liberia. That's a sad time for Liberia. Because how can accountability be the hallmark of the different ministries and ministries, departments and bureaus and commission? How can accountability be there when the leadership of the country, the leader of the country, don't seem to care about how things are run? So I mean, everybody that was minister within the CDC government did exactly the same thing that the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs did. So if you calculate 19 by 2.7 million people, $2.7 million, I'm talking about just the ministry. I'm not even talking about the deputy and all of that. Just the ministry. You can imagine how much money went into people's pockets. How much money went into people's pockets? I must praise God, and I must be very factual here. That I thank God that George Manuel Weah did not win re-elections. And we found out, you all know, and I know, the very day of the inauguration, he fled the country. I will literally use the word fled the country. He left the country. The very day that somebody else, the next president, was inaugurated, instead of staying here to have dialogue and communicate with the incoming president to tell him and be able to turn over the seat of government in an administrative way. I know they did the presidential way, with turning over flags and whatnot, but they could have sat together to talk about what had happened and what was expected, of the new government, with his being an advisor in a way. But rather, he boarded a plane and flew out of the country, and he been out of the country up to now. And now we are finding out these things that happened under his watch for 6 years. How long can Liberia go through such a thing? How long could we have gone through such a thing if he had won another 6 years of leadership? Millions of dollars getting missing while Liberians don't have jobs. They have 730 names, ghost names, and nobody is taking pay. Where did the money go? $2.7 million a year. So you calculate it times 6, and then you will know how many million went into people's pockets that are now accounted for. But this is what we get. If we're not careful and mindful of appointing people or electing people into offices, this is what happens. We go through such situation. The country loses money. And things that should be done just can't get done because the roads, the people selling everywhere on the streets, no medical attention because the medical situation in Liberia is a debacle. So how do you get these things running when the government, the head of the government, his department, his ministry is so corrupt that words can't even express it? So now we have to be very careful when we appoint, select, elect people into offices. Do we really know these people? Why are they going there? Is it for themselves or for you, Liberians? We pray and hope that this new government, as they have started, they don't even have, as we understand, they didn't even have an office of audit. The Ministry of State, no office of audit. So that means they didn't have the slightest idea or thought of auditing the government or auditing various departments and ministries and offices within the government of the CDC. Because we realized a lot of the auditors were murdered. So they didn't even have an office to audit. But people were being paid as auditors. You can imagine that, Liberians? It is so painful. It is so hurtful when we hear these things. Rampant corruption. And this is the man who came to power and said, I will crack down on corruption. I will crack down on corruption. But then behind the curtain they say, it is our time. It is our time. We will do whatever we want. We will do. We don't care. As soon as someone else inaugurates, I will run out of the country and nobody can get me. Tour is in Ivory Coast. That's where he built his houses. You are minister of finance. You didn't build your home in Liberia, but you better build a house in a foreign country and not your own country. Are these people really people who love Liberia? Do they really love Liberia? Because if they do, they would have built houses in Liberia where they would be able to stay and then account for things that they did that was wrong. But now he fled to the Ivory Coast. And it is so saddening for Liberia to have to go through what they go through every year, in and out. When will we really be a country of accountability? When will we really be a people who will care about one another, be our brother's keeper, love one another? When everybody gets in power, they go and steal their share. Liberia have become a town elephant. Everybody cut their share and move on. But I'm hoping that this new government will audit these various departments, these various ministries, the various ministers, former ministers, audit them, and if they are found guilty, prosecute them. Don't let them go free. You need to show an example on someone or some people, and then others who are coming in will know that if you ever try this nonsense, you will be prosecuted as well and jail for it. Not just to say in our mouths, but that they should be audited, and when they are found guilty, they need to be prosecuted, dealt with severely, so that the next group that come in will come to their senses, will know that there are rules and regulations governing this government. And if we ever try such a thing, we will be dealt with severely, at least so our people can live a much decent life. They can get decent pay. And it is something that is so, it is so disturbing. People were stealing all this money and roads in Liberia will never be built or even finished. 6 years. But this is what we get when we put these kind of people into power. Even though myself, we don't know that they were going to do it. But what did they really know to become ministers and president or whatnot? What do they really know? So I hope this will be a lesson to all of us Liberians. So to my subscribers, I want to say thank you for your consistency. Thank you for returning. Thank you for sharing my videos, liking them, hitting the notification bell. And those of you who have not subscribed, I ask your indulgence. Kindly subscribe. Because you'll be getting this information day in and day out concerning the affairs of our country. The affairs of our country. So I want to say thank you so much. And this is your show just for you. And this is your man, Sonny Wayne Fella. You have a blessed day.